What's up, YouTube? This is Morgan, also known as Jew, and the NBA season does start tonight on, Tuesday the 18th. So I'm going to go through ESPN's power rankings and see if I'd agree or disagree with certain rankings for all 30 teams in the league. I wanted to do a standings projection, but I couldn't find anything to do the standings projection on. So I'm just going to be reacting to power rankings and see if I think people should be higher or lower. So without further ado, let's get into it. So I'm going to start from the bottom and go to the top, so it's not like I just scrolled really fast, so I don't necessarily know rankings on in between. I know who's at the top and I know who's at the bottom. Number 30 Houston Rockets. I think this is a very good spot for them. As it says on this, they had a very good draft with Jabari Smith and Tari Eason. Tari Eason was a player I watched a lot at LSU. He played against Georgia Tech, so I got to see him thrive against them, and then I followed him throughout the season. Jabari Smith also being a top 3 pick, everybody knew that was going to happen. They have a very good young core, but it's young and very inexperienced, and that's what's going to cause them to not do as high and probably finish near the bottom. This is all basically the bottom is tank job for Victor Wembanyama, who's a phenomenal prospect and I love. So number 29, Oklahoma City Thunder. I think this is a good spot, especially because it's a very similar team as to what was last year, and their pick that would have changed everything for this year got hurt. They still had to bring in young pieces with Jalen Williams. And also, as it says, Ousmane Dieng. I don't know much about him, but apparently it's a promising wing. Another very young team with a very bright future, and a lot of picks to use if they want to. Instead of go from looking for the future, they can just go boom. We'll use our assets, trade for somebody else, make a decent run at something later in the future. But this season won't be good for them. I agree with them being there. Orlando Magic at 28. It does shock me that they're a little bit this low. I would expect them to be a little bit higher based on just some of the talent that they have on the roster. Obviously, the development of Jalen Suggs and Cole Anthony hasn't looked too bright, but it's their first and second years, respectively, so they have a lot of time. Mo Bamba's finally looking elite, at least alive. They re-signed Gary Harris. Now, if Jonathan Isaac can stay healthy, that's good. Paolo Banchero, obviously, being the number 1 pick and being a top prospect for them. The thing is with the bottom, a lot of these teams are super young, and that's what's going to cause them to struggle. And some of them have very bad direction as an organization. These teams being at the bottom doesn't shock me all that much. The Pacers being this low a little bit shocks me. I gotta see who else is above, but Spurs being above them. Yeah, the Spurs I have as a bottom 3 team in the NBA. So having them in 26 is a little interesting. Pacers, they got Benedict Mathurin. I love Benedict Mathurin. I loved him in college. Tyrese Halliburton, anybody will know that I've loved him. He was my pick for Rookie of the Year in his rookie year, before the season even started. He's just a good guy in general. Pacers, they have a lot of young pieces, and trading away Domantas Sabonis was honestly pretty big for them. Gave them a different direction, let them get a fresh reset. So I think that it's going to be beneficial for the Pacers, and I think that they can go back to being a competing team like they were in the past. Spurs being this high again, they got rid of DeJounte Murray, and they let Lonnie Walker walk, which is weird. They have a lot of really young pieces, but they're so underdeveloped and raw that being 26 is a huge shocking. Post finals making 21, that makes sense. They had DeJounte Murray, that was their team, and Lonnie Walker was a good piece for that. But letting Lonnie Walker walk and DeJounte Murray being traded for basically nothing, that it doesn't make any sense. I don't understand what they're doing. But yeah. Jazz being 20, being this low makes sense. I think they're going to surprise a lot of people with the talent they have on the roster, especially trading for THT as well. I think that they're going to surprise a lot of people. I don't think they finish this low. But if they do, I think it's a lot better than the record would show for them. I like them resetting. They weren't, because after the Rudy Gobert contract, I thought they were just going to be like, oh, we're cool in mediocrity. We're going to be making money. It's going to piss off our fans a little bit, but I thought that they were okay with just making money and chilling. But after trading Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell, getting a fresh restart, I think this is a good beginning for Utah. Pistons, Being 24, I feel like it makes sense. Their young pieces are really, really, really talented. They had a really good draft with Ivy and Duran, and then you already have Cade Cunningham, Sadiq Bey, pieces like that. They have a very good organization. They're being run very, very well, which is weird for the Pistons. They're a very young team, and that's going to be showing some holes. I think the Killian Hayes experiment is over. I think it's either this year's his last year, or they try to trade him for something. But I gotta laugh. I can't help but laugh at this. Though we're getting 40 wins this year as a Kings fan. I don't think so. Keegan Murray was very, very impressive throughout summer league and preseason. And they got Kevin Herter and Malik Monk, who are two very good shooters for the wings. But other than that, I don't see a direction with this team. They have no bench. All their talent is on starters, and they have a brand new head coach who knows what's going to happen with this team. I feel like this is a little high. I think it's just based off of talent being that they're up here. Wizards being in 22, that makes sense. They're just stuck in play-in team to nothing. Like, they're going to be a 9, 10, or 11. They're never going to really do anything if they keep the direction that they're at. Johnny Davis at a 10th pick. I don't think that word snagged is right. I don't like Johnny Davis. He's a good scorer, but his numbers show that he was efficient, but every single game that I watched, especially towards the end of the season, he was so inefficient. And when he played Georgia Tech, he got shut down for the most part by a team that was a terrible defensive team by every step of the margin. Like, that shouldn't be happening. It came down to the other, whatever their other wing point guard was. I can't remember his name. He was a beast. I loved him. But yeah, Johnny Davis, I don't think he does any offensive help, really. I think it's just another questionable draft pick that they had, that they've had the past 2 years, honestly. So this is another team with just no direction that I don't see them doing anything. But they have too much talent in Bradley Beal for them to not be in like a play-in running. Charlotte Hornets, LaMelo Ball is going to be out for the beginning of the season. Miles Bridges, pretty sure he's facing jail time, so he's not, and he wasn't even signed. Facing 3 felony domestic violence charges. They drafted a big man, which they need. This team at the very beginning of the season is going to struggle, and I think they're going to make the play-in, but I don't see them truly competing. Why the fuck do we have the Knicks this high? I think this is just genuinely trying to, sorry, that caught off guard with my Charlotte Hornets topic, but why the fuck are the Knicks 20? Julius Randle is dog shit. Yeah, getting Jalen Brunson is nice, but what else is there? Like, when was this made? This is to offer in a Donovan Mitchell trade? When was this made? August 23rd. Okay. So the Donovan Mitchell trade hadn't happened yet, so that's what some of these questions are. But, I mean, that kind of makes sense then. But it's like, even still, this is them banking. It's like, oh, can they get the... No, they should be so much fucking lower. I just don't see what they're going to do. They have such a low ceiling and a high floor. That's the best way to put the Knicks. I wish that they weren't in such a big media market that they get all this attention and all of this hype. But they're just so bad. I truly don't get it. Trailblazers being 19th. I like the moves that the Blazers are doing, re-signing Nurkic and Simons, and then Jeremy Grant. That they also got, and Gary Payton Jr., or not Gary Payton Jr., Gary Payton II, which is also just junior, is huge for their bench. He's a great piece for the Warriors last year. Shaedon Sharpe is also another good piece for them that they drafted. I think this is an improved season, especially from last year, which is very much needed. With the Lakers at 18. Lakers are always a team that I'm super low on. Like, yes, they obviously have LeBron James, and yes, they obviously have Anthony Davis. But that's about it. That's the best. That's about it. Like, Russell Westbrook is way past his prime. Troy Brown Jr., Thomas Bryant, Damian Jones, Juan Toscano Anderson, Lonnie Walker. The best of those is Lonnie Walker. Thomas Bryant's a solid piece, but he gets hurt. Most of these guys are bench players. Like, Juan Toscano Anderson barely played for the Warriors at all. So filling out their bench by getting these guys is just, it doesn't make sense. The Lakers, and I don't understand how Rob Pelinka got an extension to his job. What the fuck else are they doing? It's like a team with LeBron James and Anthony Davis is going to do something, make at least some noise. But that's if Anthony Davis plays over 70 games. He hasn't. I think he's played over 70 games twice in his career, and one of them was the 2020 season where he got 3 or 4 months of rest. Like, he's not going to play 70 games for you. And then LeBron James it's like, as much as we say, he's like 37, 38. Like, he's getting to the point where at some point he has to regress. I don't think it's this season. I think he still has a motor, and especially after last season, he has a chip on his shoulder. So he's going to play well, but it's like, what else are you getting out of this team besides two people? Basketball isn't a game of 2 people. It's how well does your team play together and game plan around. Darvin Ham, as a coach, we have no idea what's going to happen. From a coaching standpoint, I think that was the right move, getting rid of Frank Vogel, but I think Frank Vogel was more of a scapegoat than people will give him credit for. But yeah, so that's my daily Lakers rant. Cavs 17. I have that a little low for them. Especially after last year, they bring back their piece of Ricky Rubio off the bench, who nobody remembers. But at the beginning of the season, he was huge for them. So this doesn't say it probably should be higher, especially because they got Donovan Mitchell. But trading Colin Sexton was a big piece for them. They got a true 2 guard instead of a questionable 2 guard. Like, because nobody really, with having Darius Garland and Colin Sexton, everybody knew Sexton was the 2 guard, but nobody really knew it. That's the best way to put it. But now having like a true set out roster, Evan Mobley going to be in his second year, Jared Allen, wrong words for it, but they're the Twin Towers. They have 2 very good big men down low, which I think for this team does very, very well. Pelicans in 16th. I think that's more respect than people will give the Pelicans credit for. Usually, I'm high on the Pelicans, obviously, being a Jose Alvarado fan, and I physically watched a lot of their playoff games. Like, that was a game I made sure to watch every day. And they didn't really do much to change the team. I believe that they still have Nickeil Alexander-Walker. They got Dyson Daniels at the 8th pick. And then they kept their team pretty much the same, bringing back Zion to a team that made noise in the postseason last year. So I think the only way for this team is up. I don't think that they struggle. I think that this team played very well together, and their coaching was phenomenal last year. So I think this is a team that people are going to be sleeping on to make, like, not a deep postseason run, but to make noise again this season. I think that's a team that's going to make noise. The Hawks, that's another team to make noise. A lot of people have them finishing way lower than you would think, but it's all based on, what's it called? Just how the bench plays. Getting rid of Kevin Huerter and moving to DeJounte Murray, that's 2 true, like, point guard players. So how can they space the floor well? And also both need the ball in their hands to truly succeed. But I think that Trey is also a decent off-ball player. Sometimes. I'm not going to say he's like an elite off-ball player, but he can be a solid off-ball player sometimes. And statistically, watching him play defense and from a statistic standpoint are 2 completely different stories. Trae Young is bought into playing team defense. It's just they understand that he's small, and so they try to switch on to him. And then in the process of him trying to switch off and find someone else so that they can switch it, that's where the miscommunication happens. We're trying to expose Trae Young, and the defensive statistics come. In my opinion, there's no actual facts to back this up, but that's just my opinion on that take. In the playoffs, they ran into a very good defensive team where Trae Young would get switched on to Jimmy Butler, then switch to Bam, then switch to PJ Tucker, then switch to Kyle Lowry for a little bit. Like, there was no escaping anything for Trae Young in that series. And that'll just make him better, which would be so much fun to watch. 14, the Chicago Bulls. Yeah, this is like a good spot for them. Quiet additions. Andre Drummond looking much better with a 3-point shot than he has in years past, which is incredible. Goran Dragic is always a solid bench player. Lonzo Ball being healthy, as it says in here, is a huge question mark. And that's always been a question mark with Lonzo, is his health. But they can be a very solid team with DeMar DeRozan. Excuse me. Oof. They can be a solid team with DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine being there. It's just all it comes down to the Chicago Bulls is health. With Lonzo on the floor, they were a plus defensive team. With him off the floor, and for at least with the starters, they were a minus team. So having Lonzo Ball is back is going to be huge, huge, huge for them to make any noise in general. Raptors being 13, I like that they're putting them this high because they have a really bright future. They have a bright future and a very well built team and one of the best coaches in the league in Nick Nurse. Yeah, they kept their size with Boucher and Thaddeus Young. Scotty Barnes was literally the rookie of the year last year, and he was insane. Fred VanVleet being there, Pascal Siakam. I think with having more of a team, it takes more of the weight off of Siakam's shoulders, so he's not just this spin cycle guy again. He's actually just, they're a very good team. That's like, there's no superstar player that's, I think, can elevate them to being a championship team, but they have a very good team, and that's huge for the Raptors. So I think having them 13 is very good. It's a very good, very good spot. The Timberwolves at 12. Okay, so I was a huge hater on the Rudy Gobert trade for them because, yes, it puts Cat back in his natural position at the power forward, and it bolsters a defense, but you had to give up so much. You gave up a lot of bench players, that some of them being very valuable for you, especially Pat Bev. Pat Bev, that energy off the bench was amazing for them, and he basically bought into this. But having them this high, I just disagree. I love Anthony Edwards. I think he's a star or a superstar, and I love Cat. But I don't know. This team, it's one of those. It's like you have to see once the season starts of how they actually play, rather than what do we think that they can do on 2K. Because on 2K, this team would probably be disgusting. But yeah. Brooklyn Nets being 11, I still think it's high. But it's better because they'll get a full season of KD, Kyrie, and then they'll have Ben Simmons. We don't know what version of Ben Simmons we're going to be getting anyway. So I like, this is they have a good high ceiling, but they also have a decent floor that they can still fall. It's just questions. There's a lot of questions with the Nets. The Sixers, I don't know, because the pieces that they added were good pieces, but it's more of James Harden doesn't have that step anymore, which it's huge for them because they took a pay, as it says, he took a pay cut, but he can't be that number one guy, and he's not expected to be with Joel Embiid, but he also has to go more into a playmaking role, which isn't where James Harden thrives. He thrives in his ability to score the ball. So I don't know. The Sixers, they have a good team. I also just hate Doc Rivers as a coach. I think he can't coach at a high level. He can win you regular season games, but making adjustments is where he really, really struggles. And that was shown 2 years ago in that Hawks series, and almost shown in the Raptors series. Is he's like, okay, we can just keep doing the same things over and over again because it's working. And then they lose a game. It's like, all right, well, that's just a fluke. Lose another game. And it got very close to losing that third game in when it was 3-0 to start that series. And the Hawks, 2 years ago, they should have murdered the Hawks. And it's like, yeah, you can put some of the you can put some of the blame onto Ben Simmons. But a lot of that is on his inability to merge his starting and bench lineups. He didn't like to mesh them. He just kept them. The coaching is what's going to hold back the Sixers, in my ultimate opinion. That's what that is. So, number 9, Denver Nuggets. I think this is a good spot for them. They have another player that will come back for them in Jamal Murray. I believe Michael Porter Jr. will also... Is he back, or is he just injured for the season? Okay. So, yeah, with the Denver Nuggets, Michael Porter Jr. will be back. I forgot. It was last year that he missed. There's no report of him missing it this year. But I think that they can take a very good step forward. Monte Morris and Ish Smith, I feel like that's irreplaceable, interchangeable guards. Ish Smith's a good veteran guard that gives you a lot of he can make good plays. Bruce Brown and KCP is good impact players just to fill out the bench. And they're getting 2 huge pieces that were missing for them last year. So I think this team has potential to be close to competing for a championship, if not competing. So they're sneaky. The Mavs, okay, I'm not a confident person in saying that a team that runs through specifically one player, no matter what, is going to win a championship. Yeah, they made the right moves. They got a better center and they got a good backup center. They filled out their front court, which is a huge issue for them. But that's and like that. Yeah, that might be like, oh, that's all you need to really do for this team. But it's just Luka Doncic is such a special player, and yeah, he's probably one of the best right now in the league. But I just don't see a world where one specific player wins you a championship anymore. It's become such a team dynamic, and Jason Kidd's coaching is questionable. It was questionable on the Bucks. It was questionable on the Nets. It's questionable. That's the best thing with Jason Kidd. It's questionable. So I really don't know. I feel like coaching is what holds this team back also. Is I think that they have potential to be, and losing Jalen Brunson, obviously they don't have that second guy anymore. So that really hurts them. So I think this is like an okay spot. I think they should be a little bit lower. But so the Miami Heat. Now, I'm not like huge on them this season. People will know that I love the Heat. They're my team. But I'm not high on them this season at all. Much lower than most people are putting them. I put them bottom of the top 10 just because they they still have Jimmy Butler and they still have Bam Adebayo and Victor Oladipo starting to look more like his old self. But they lost PJ Tucker, which was kind of like the glue of that team. And it's like, yeah, on paper, you're not losing that much in terms of statistics, but PJ Tucker did so much not on the stat sheet that you're just losing. He got you spots of like he was a 6'5" guy. He's 6'5", but he can guard your centers. He can box out your centers so that people like Bam Adebayo or Jimmy Butler or other people can get these rebounds. I don't feel like Jovic does that much this season. I think he's just a young piece that they continue to develop. And they found another guy that they just converted to a two-way. Just pieces. They're very good at finding undrafted talent. But without PJ Tucker, I just don't see a world where the Heat make it back to the finals. And very close, I don't think they make the Eastern Conference Finals. So I think that that's just where that is. Clippers being 6, I think this is good. Their roster is a loaded roster, and it says right here, most expensive rosters in NBA history. But they have a loaded roster top to bottom. And they have such depth that and they got John Wall as another point guard to add, so they don't just strand Reggie Jackson and they just strand the point guard. So even with injuries, this team is so deep that I think that they can do fine. And yeah, Michael DeVoe's on the roster. That's not any reason for why I'm high on them, but because he's not going to play at all. But Clippers just have a huge roster top to bottom. I think they have title aspirations. Suns, I'm super low on, not because of the Adelaide 36ers loss. But just because there's so many questions about this team and they have so much distraction right now with that loss. And yeah, they'll have stuff to prove, but Chris Paul is regressing. Whether the stat sheet shows or not, he's regressing. And I don't think that the other guys can just step up enough to take them to that championship. Grizzlies being 4, I feel like it's a little high for them. And yeah, they got John Morant, Jaren Jackson, Dylan Brooks. Their roster is a very good roster. I didn't realize they lost Kyle Anderson. That's a huge piece for them. That can keep them, honestly, from winning. But the top 3, as most people, it's going to stay. I don't know. This is a team that can make noise. And it's like make noise in terms of like they don't, like they expect it of themselves. But as a sports fan, I wouldn't expect it for the Grizzlies. It'd be weird. Just because I don't know. This team is such a complete team, and they are very well coached. But I just don't think that they have. I just don't think that they can get to a championship. The way the roster is built. I don't know how to explain it. Milwaukee Bucks at 3. I think this is good. They'll have Chris Middleton back, who's healthy. Bobby Porter. Like their roster is a very good roster. Budenholzer's coaching is very questionable at times, and it always will be. But his coaching always seems to be able to work. Because last year they could have competed for another championship if Chris Middleton hadn't gotten hurt. So I think 3 is a good spot for them. Celtics, they fixed a lot of their offensive struggles, from at least the playoffs. Malcolm Brogdon being a backup guard, and Gallinari, who I'm so iffy on. It's like all of my friends have the same opinion on Gallinari. He's like, you look at him and watch him play, and you're like, what the fuck are you doing? And then he'll just go out and score and drop 20 for you, and you're like, what? He's like that type of player. It's just like he looks like he doesn't know what he's doing. He looks like just an unathletic white dad who just happened to stumble across the game of basketball, and then goes and can actually score for you when you need him to. Gallinari is such a weird player. But the Celtics keeping their roster the same, I think that's huge for them. And then they made their roster better. So I think that they can compete for a championship again. But I think that if they don't, and it's another like underwhelming season, I think they look to trade either Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown. One of the two. I'd prefer you trade Jason Tatum. I think Jaylen Brown brings more for you. But yeah, Golden State. I think with the way that the roster was changed, I don't like that they are still at number one. I would put them like lower, a little bit lower, just because I don't think that this is, with them losing two huge bench pieces, that it's enough. The play of Nemanja Bjelica is amazing off the bench, and I think with the fight between Poole and Green, I think it just creates a lot of noise, and they get out to a slowish start and then start to pick it up. So I don't think that they're a number one team. They're not the team to be afraid of, but I think that they're still a solid team. That being said, I'm going to, where is it? I'll do my predictions for the NBA season. I'm going to, for MVP, I'm going to put, I think Luka finally wins one. I think that voter fatigue with Jokic, I think Luka having the team that he has and the success that they will have, I think Luka does win his first MVP. For Rookie of the Year, I want to say it's going to be either Paolo or Keegan Murray. Paolo is simply off of just opportunity, and he has a lot of opportunity because the Magic don't really have a lot. Chet Holmgren's hurt, so there's another guy you don't have to compete with. Jabari Smith, I don't think he can play at a Rookie of the Year level. So I think it's between just Paolo and Keegan Murray in just terms of simply opportunity. Because Paolo's going to put up stats, but Keegan's going to put up stats and be very, very beneficial to a Kings team that's probably going to be really shit. So that's Rookie of the Year is going to be one of the two. I think I'm just going to stick with Paolo, which is everybody's pick, but whatever. Most improved. Most improved is going to be a tough one because I don't know, because there's so many people. It's like we don't know like what they're going to look like, who's going to have more of an expanded role. But like a comeback player would be like Jamal Murray after missing, what was it, 2 seasons with his ACL, basically. A whole season. He missed at least one whole season with his ACL. So I think it's like a comeback type player for him. Depoy, I think it's going to be either Marcus Smart or Mikal Bridges. I don't think Rudy Gobert wins another one in his lifetime. I think the voters are just done with him. He was kind of just like free gimme for Depoy, but I think he doesn't get it. Coach of the Year, I think can be either. I think Willie Green can make a fight for it in terms of just improving. The normal guys that everybody has every year. You got Eric Spoelstra. You got Monty Williams. Obviously, Ty Lue is going to be up there with how bounce back the Clippers are going to be. And obviously the top guys are always going to be. But it's like, if you want sleepers, I think Ty Lue and Willie Green can be sleepers for Coach of the Year. Or even the Pistons coach. I don't even know who the Pistons coach is. But it's the way that team is. There's another. Oh, it's Dwayne Casey. Yeah, Dwayne Casey can have a chance at Coach of the Year if he improves the team in the right way. It's a very hot take. It's also everything has to go right, but I think he's like a bottom sleeper for Coach of the Year. Any other awards I'm missing? Executive of the Year doesn't matter. Let me see. Is there anything I'm missing? Sixth Man of the Year. I think Jordan Poole gets it. After last year of what he did, I think they didn't give it to him just because he started more games than he didn't. But I think Tyler Hero will not be coming off the bench anymore. I think it was listed that he's going to be a starter to start the season. So I think Jordan Poole gets it. I think Jordan Poole deserves it. He deserves recognition. Just signed an extension, but that's who I think it is. Finals MVP, too hard to tell this far out. But if I had to make any prediction of who I have winning the championship, I say the Clippers and Kawhi Leonard gets Finals MVP. That's my thoughts. If you have any predictions, leave them down below. If sports content like this interests you, I'm probably going to be doing like certain days where I'll just decide to watch a bunch of NBA games and give a recap of what I thought of different games. I'm going to be doing that. Subscribe for content like that down below. Like the video if you like the video. I'm out. Deuces.